Hi, I'm Matt Carpenter. Welcome to College, the podcast. On today's podcast, Peg and I discuss or really hit on five big things. Number one, student loan repayment for those that were in default officially went back into repayment. In other words, the federal government is coming after that money May 1st, and we discuss whether it's you or somebody you know, what should you be doing if you're one of the 5.1 million borrowers that are going to be impacted by this. 5/1 was also an important date because that is when the class of 2025, that is the deadline to put down a deposit to tell colleges where you are actually going. We talk about that, and specifically, we are seeing more than we ever have historically, the ability for parents, for students to appeal, i.e. negotiate for more money, even after the 5/1 deadline. Then we talked about an article in the New York Times written by Ron Lieber that titled "Colleges Know How Much You're Willing to Pay for College." And we really go fairly deep into that and talk about how the fact that, why is college so expensive? Well, it's good for business for private equity firms, and we unpack that pretty interesting subject matter. The fourth one, Linda McMahon, the Secretary of Education, has given us some more tangible information in terms of how she and the administration plans to hold colleges accountable for student incomes. We love this, and we expand upon exactly what they mean and why we think it's a great thing for all stakeholders involved. Lastly, we talk about another bill proposed by the administration, and that is specifically called TRIO, and it's going to cut a lot of student support programs. So we talk about who this is going to impact. Hint, we're not huge fans of this. If you are also not a huge fan of this, we talk about, what you can do to potentially make a difference here. Thanks for joining us. And away we go, Peggy. And away we go.
It is yet another week.
Nice to see you. You look very springy in your
I know.
white cheery outfit. I like
It's
it.
a beautiful, beautiful day here in Seattle. So
Good.
gotta love it.
Missed opportunity for me today. I was just thinking this. I think and most people that know probably that I was the recipient of the green jacket this past weekend. The winner with my partner and best bud, Sean
It's
Russo,
internationally known, yes.
the 2025 Beach O Invitational Tournament held in Keene, New Hampshire this year. Usually a different location every year. That's where it was this year. I got the jacket. I got the trophy, Peggy. Pride for life. Nobody can take that from me.
We know. With the real green jacket that was just handed out recently. It
A
is
real green jacket.
It's a big
That's a better
effing
one.
deal. It really is. Yes.
I really like. Yeah, Rory's jealous. He called me. He asked, "Can we trade?"
You said it didn't take you as many years as it took me. I'm jealous.
That's right. That's exactly right. Yeah, so that was a big deal. That was fun. Still plenty to talk about in our domain here. The task at hand. Again, I don't know how many weeks we've been saying this, or I guess for the last 100 days, there seems to be some more changes, updates, etc. each and every week. Some of them I think are knee jerks, are yikes. That does not sound too positive. Others we're looking at going, okay, all right, we can get behind this. So, and I think this week is no different here. But first two things we want to touch on are just timely. So, I think are things that are happening right now. So we want to start there. And the first being, we teased this last week. Now it's officially kind of in play that students that have had federal student loans in default, meaning they haven't made a payment in 270 days, those remained in default for the last 5 years, right? It started in COVID, where actually it was the Trump administration that hit pause on those, and then that carried all the way through the Biden administration. So it's been 5 years since these either student and/or parent borrowers that have federal student loans have had to make a payment. That's going away. Starting Monday,
It's past Monday, so the 5th.
Correct. Yep. So May 5th, you have to make a payment. And if you don't do it voluntarily, they are going to, quote unquote, come after you in a few different ways to get that money, right? Basically, you have to start paying at least something. So, Peggy, if I'm one of these student or parent loan borrowers that are in default, what should I be doing today if I haven't done anything yet?
Yeah, you need to reach out to your loan servicer, or maybe even it's probably easier to log into your account and see what your options are. I mean, there's horror stories of people waiting on hold for an hour, hour and a half kind of stuff, but you need to get a hold of your loan servicer or log in, see what your deal is, see what your payments are, and get them going, because as you said, they're going to get it. They're going to go after wages, depending on your age, social security. They're going to get this money. So it's really, really important, and you don't want to miss these payments, because then it's just salt on the wound. Your credit score is going to be affected, and that's just a ripple effect. It's not good for anybody, but if you're a young person, it's really, really bad. You're trying to get a mortgage, you're trying to buy a car, or even trying to look for a job. Like, credit score is super, super important. So you gotta jump on this. Put all the other crap that's going on in your life aside, and get on it, because you gotta figure out how to make it work, and get those payments going.
Yeah, and that's when I just recently learned that your credit score could impact your ability to get a job. I didn't even know that was a thing, to be honest. And I guess it makes sense in certain industries. That was news to me, but man, that's another just motivating factor here. Look, you can go to studentaid.gov. Okay, those will have and log in via your FSA ID. That's essentially your username and password. If you have no idea what that is because you haven't done it in 5 years, there's just like you have to retrieve any username and password like you do with your other accounts, you can retrieve that and you can set up your repayment plan from there. Now, to Peg's point, if you want to get somebody live on the phone, you're probably better off contacting your loan servicer as opposed to the Department of Education. That's probably going to point you towards your loan servicer anyway. But you can set up your repayment plan right through studentaid.gov. Now, obviously, the more aggressive we can get with our payments, our monthly payments, the better, and we're paying off interest and getting this kind of debt off our books as soon as possible. But I think it's a safe assumption that most folks are in this situation because it was the monthly cash flow that was the biggest challenge. And you can make the option right in there to go and choose the lowest, the most manageable monthly payment, because if you don't, okay, there's a decent probability that it's going to default to the largest monthly payment, right? So that's why you have to take action. And obviously, I totally get this. I'm guilty of this. We're wired to run from pain and seek out pleasure, right? So it's totally normal that you're just kind of putting your sand around here if this is describing you or somebody you know or whatever. But I heard something lately that resonated with me not too long ago, that action absorbs anxiety. And I really like that. So if this is something that's making you super anxious, right? We all have these things. Like, I don't even want to look at that. I don't want to open that bill. I don't want to open that email. I don't want to respond to this nasty email, whatever. Action is what, and then it just makes you more anxious, right? But I that really resonated with me. And I think, if that resonates with you, do it. Action absorbs anxiety, because we don't have a choice here. They're going to get that money. So do it in a way that's best for you. Okay.
Yeah, I like that quote. And often it's not as bad as the story you're telling yourself anyways, in general in life. So, but this one, you got to jump on it, push through, and just get those payments going. Figure out, I mean, if you got to change some things in your life to make it work, and then you just get it going, and then you can always look into, how can I minimize my payments, if there's ways to do that in your specific situation.
That's right. So next kind of timely topic here. So May 1st, it's kind of like the date on the college calendar each year, or maybe I should say college decision calendar each year. So if you're a senior in high school, May 1st is kind of the D-Day, the drop dead date. This is when I have to put down a deposit, which is telling this college, or in some cases colleges, I'm coming to your school, right? That's kind of the latest we have when we're seniors in high school. Obviously, we just kind of, that date has just recently come and gone here. So for our class 2025, we know where we're going to college next year, but we're seeing a lot of movement even since then. When I say movement, I mean colleges still trying to fill their beds. How are they doing that? They're going back and giving, better deals, right? To either their potential students, maybe they went somewhere else and they're going to see, hey, can we steal them away, from this other school by offering more money? So we've seen some kind of big name schools throw meaningful dollars around. The takeaway is, guys, if anybody that follows us always talks about how you need to advocate for yourself and appeal for more money, get a better deal. Usually, historically, that's kind of been too late in some ways after May 1st. It's not the case case anymore. Peggy, why don't you talk about it a little bit, because we've been pretty, pleasantly surprised from a consumer standpoint from what we've been seeing.
Yeah, so for people that this is like new to them, I mean, basically you get award letters and you can appeal and say, hey, thank you very much, but I need more for this reason, or XYZ school gave me this. Thank you for your generous, discount, but can you match it, whatever that is? And to Matt's point, usually up to May 1, I mean, we're going great guns with our families, helping them do this. But usually May 1, you make your decision. But yeah, we've had a couple of our experts on our team come back and say XYZ school. I mean, to the latest one was 15,000 extra dollars a year. I mean, we're talking big money here. And the reason why this happens is because these schools, they don't like their yields. They don't like the deposits that came in. I mean, these colleges, and we've talked about this, we'll touch about it even more because there's an article that came out. They're nonprofits, but they are big businesses, and it's all about that net revenue. And these schools obviously aren't happy with what their targets were. We'd have this many of this kind of pay family, da 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 da, all along the line, and they're not getting them. So they're gonna part with some of that revenue to get some of that net revenue in. So it's actually, you're in a position of as a consumer when schools are doing this. So, I mean, I think the overall thing to realize is you're always in that position if you're in the know. And the more you know, the better. And you don't get too emotionally sucked into any school. And it's just, when I saw that, I was like, wow, that is really, really interesting. And who knows the reason behind the scenes why this school was doing this. We're never going to know that, but it's just very interesting. And it's just, you just got to be on top of this. So if you're in a situation with your child or you're the student, hey, you can always reach back out to these schools. And if you hear from a school that you said no to, the door's still open if they're offering you better discounts, and that was maybe the reason you said no, right? Because it
And these are
wasn't
popular.
the cost, right?
These are popular schools. These are big, and we're talking about big bucks. They're not saying here's 500 extra dollars here, right? I mean, we're
Right.
talking about completely altering, the investment that you're looking at, especially over the next 4 years. So a couple other things I'm thinking about. Number one, if you're an upperclassman, play this hand. If you're already enrolled at a particular college, go ahead and make sure that you play your hand. You probably haven't got your financial aid offer for next year yet, right? They package the incoming freshmen first, but very much keep that in hand. Maybe even get out preemptively and say, hey, we don't know if we can afford it, if we're at this price point to remain in school for this year. If you're on a wait list somewhere, now reach out to that school, right? And we've seen more wait list movement than we ever have in the past. And this is kind of an ugly truth about this, whatever ecosystem, this sandbox that we play in. But you want to maximize your odds of getting off the wait list. You know how to do that better than any other way. You call them and say, don't consider us for financial aid, and we'll come, right? Guess what? That will move you up the wait list very, very quickly. Now, most families don't have the ability to do that, right? But that's kind of the harsh, again, reality of this business, right? Because again, let's be clear, this is a kind of it's a business before anything else, and schools will absolutely pay attention to that. The other thing that I'm going to encourage families to do is, let's just say that your dream school or whatever didn't come, it wasn't affordable for you guys. You got in, but it wasn't affordable. You decided not to go there. Maybe give it a last ditch effort, right? Maybe give it a last ditch effort and say, hey, if we can make this again palpable, we're in. So that's the takeaway. There's still something you can be doing here. And if you're an underclassman, guys, pay attention, right? Pay attention, because this is one of the most important parts of the process. And how do we put ourselves in a good position to do this, to be able to create leverage for ourselves? We apply to competing schools. So that's something we want to do even as we're in the list building process as freshmen, sophomores, certainly juniors in high school, right? We're setting ourselves up for successful appeals for conversations that we're going to have 1, 2, 3, 4 years from now.
Well, yeah, and Matt's talking about applying to a school that maybe you're like, ooh, I didn't like it. But it doesn't matter. It's this very proactive planning of that school's a competitor of that school. It doesn't matter. Just put it in. Yeah, you might have an extra supplemental question, whatever. That could really pay dividends down the road. And I'll just add on to the upperclassman piece. And I tell parents this all the time when they're trying to make an affordability decision with kids in high school. And you can't count on it, but it's always been the case. And I think a lot of people just don't realize, once your child's in school, you can absolutely keep looking for money from that school. My son got $2,500 twice from Kelly at IU just because he walked in and said, "Hey, do you have any scholarships for?" I'm in Kelly's a business school. I'm in the business school, and boom, he applies. Not competitive. My nephew got money at Syracuse business school again, but I've seen it time and time again. So even that's not even appealing. That's just going to the department or wherever. Just realize it's always a moving target. You got to advocate for yourself, and I'm the big advocate for if you don't ask, you're not going to get it. And maybe over ask and then you get a little less, but it's all good because you got something. So just keep that in mind because it's not, oh, here's my package forever and ever and ever. Oh, it just isn't. You don't have to have a job loss to think about maybe getting some more money.
Play the game, man. Play the game. Speaking of playing the game, you should do it as a consumer. Embrace it. There's a smart way to do it, and again, and everybody can do it, kind of regardless of your situation. And I'm telling you one thing, and we've kind of always known this, but there's more kind of evidence and stories and headlines coming out, which kind of brings me to our next talking point here. Certainly, the colleges are playing the game, right? And Ron Lieber, he's a journalist for the New York Times. He writes a lot, I think, primarily about higher ed. He's published some books, and again, I think he's one of the kind of the go-to journalists that's, I think, usually trying to shine a spotlight, microscope, etc., on colleges, right? And what kind of don't we know, right? I think so many, we know this, Peg, so many consumers are just a little bit naive, like, hey, this is higher education, and these are nonprofits, and they're just these mission-minded entities, and everything's cupcakes and rainbows, right? And listen, Peg and I do what we do because we love college and the experience and the opportunity it provides. Like, I think it's amazing. I think it's one of the best things. It's almost a rite of passage here in the United States. But to be too naive, you are not putting yourself up for, or not putting yourself in a position to succeed. And so this most recent article that he wrote, colleges know how much you're willing to pay. And I'll quickly summarize it. It's worth the read, but basically he provides some, I think, compelling kind of detail about these huge budgets that these colleges spend ultimately on marketing, right? To simplify it, it's on to try to get, yes, students to go there, but also to figure out how to get them to pay the maximum amount to go there, but still opt in, right? It just again, just find that sweet spot of how much can I get you to pay where we're still winning here, right? We're still getting margins that make sense. And all of these companies that they're paying, huge dough for are all private equity backed firms. So if we kind of, drill down for some of the reasons that colleges are, again, obviously there's a lot of variables, but some of the reasons they're so expensive and they continue to go up each year is the expenses that they have to pay these ultimately private equity firms to try to help them do, what they want to do. So certainly I'm oversimplifying a little bit there, but I think that's kind of the net result here. And I don't know, just curious to hear, your commentary, Peg. I know this is, you essentially said when we talked about it, what else is new, but just kind of expand
Yeah,
on
I
that a
think
little
I specifically said no duh because this is what we do, right? This is what we do. And so I hear this and like our big thing is to get on our soapbox or mountain or whatever and scream this to all parents. Like this, you said this is the sandbox you're playing in. These are entities and you said people think they're mission minded. They are mission minded, but what's their mission? Like that's the big question. And they talked about College of Charleston in here, not throwing them under the bus. Super cool school in South Carolina, but like they had a goal. They spent the money, and all of a sudden, within a year, they're pulling instead of from 3 states close by, they're pulling from 9 and up and up and up. And there's story after story of colleges that have put money behind this, and the results are tremendous. But you guys need to understand what they're doing. And basically, like there's $500,000 that College of Charleston spent, they're getting already a good return on their investment. So I'm sure you've seen, if you have kids, you take that PSAT, your kid's getting flooded with marketing, but they're getting slicker and slicker about targeting certain kids. They know zip codes. Nowadays, so many people are sharing so much about themselves. Not really me, but people are on Facebook and everywhere else, right? And so people can figure out, what do you do? How much do you potentially make? Depending on your job, it might be public information what you make. They are targeting specific families. He said in here, Ron, the number now is like 56% is the discount rate. These are massive discounts, and every family wants to get them. You need to understand how these colleges are doing it so that you can maximize your discounts. And it's not something to get mad about. Like, we had somebody write into support asking, like, are we a part of this? And we're like, "Oh, this isn't, we know all about this. This is what we're advocating for you. Like, we're advocating for you to help you navigate this world, right? But this is the world you're living in with these colleges. So, to Matt's point, you don't want to be naive. And that's not said in a judgmental way at all. You don't know what you don't know. That's why you're listening to a podcast like this. So you can understand what's going on and then be able to navigate it. But these colleges are spending a lot of money. That's not the only reason why tuition's going up. But there's also this thing, the higher the price, the more value it is. And that isn't really what's that story with Martha Stewart, or somebody was making pies and they were $10 and they were sitting on the shelf, and then they charged 35 and they were running out, right? So there is that idea that the more expensive it is, it's better. And we were just on a team call yesterday and somebody mentioned something and said elite college, and the other person said it's not an elite college, and this other person said, hey, that's where I went to school. And I said, guys, let's just not even call anything elite college. Let's just not even go there, you know? Okay, I know I'm getting on a soapbox here, Carp.
No, it's okay. I mean, look, it's this perceived value, and that's been a real strategy that's been implemented and said, hey, if, you know, again, this is 20, 30 years ago. If Harvard's charging 50,000, what if we just charge that? And again, we'll actually discount it down, you know, to get people in here. But again, and that is a strategy that absolutely worked, right? They have very, very smart people helping them, you know, figure out this, you know, algorithm really of how to get this
Yeah,
yield
they
that they're
they have
looking.
algorithm. I mean, it's all algorithm based. It's big business. It's MBAs doing these
Well, Peggy,
private
I get it,
equity firms. I mean,
and you know, when that individual wrote in and said, "Hey, I read this article. Are you selling our information?" I was like, "We should be. Nice little revenue stream there. Not yet, but thank you for the idea."
he's kidding
Look at
everybody. He's kidding.
yeah,
We're not. That is
yeah.
not on the docket.
Well, but anyways, PE firms, call us if you want to talk. But the look, here's my thing. I don't have a problem with these colleges spending all this money to try to increase their bottom line, right? To run a good business, right?
Businesses.
In order to move their mission forward. Guess what? We do. Right? We do. We believe in our mission. But we're also a business. And if we're really going to have impact from a mission standpoint, we also have to grow the business. So I totally understand trying to balance that dynamic, but we say it. Right. I don't like this lack of transparency where it's colleges like to keep this a secret. You know, a lot of those colleges were kind of like, you know, oh my goodness, what are we going to do? And blah, blah, blah. And so, and again, they don't pay taxes. I don't like that. You're like, what are you talking about? You guys are businesses, okay, that should be paying taxes, you know. But here's the main thing with this lack of accountability. If you're going to be investing all these resources and just almost, I don't want to say solely focused, but so much focus and resources going to just getting the kids in, I think there should be a certain obligation to make sure that these students are getting a return on their investment, right? Now, obviously as students, they have an obligation. They gotta hold up their end of the deal, but there needs to be some accountability on what are we doing to support them on the back end, right? We got to get them in here, but are we spending similar resources, time? Are we hiring private equity firms to make sure that these kids are getting placed in, you know, reasonable jobs that are, you know,
Internships. Yeah.
aligned with their majors? Are we investing in that in the same way that we're just getting them in there? So that's where I have a little bit, that's what kind of irks me a little bit more. Again, it's this lack of transparency. We don't want to talk about this. We're just a, you know, nonprofit institution, mission minded, blah, blah, blah bullshit. Right. But then also, are you investing in the same way to make sure that these kids go on and have, you know, great opportunities? So that's also a great segue here. Right. So Linda McMahon, the new, you know, Secretary of Education here, the same day, and this was not a coincidence, and it makes sense, right? It's timely. So on May 1st, the same day that, again, these defaulted loans went into repayment, she penned another, or her and team penned another kind of dear colleague letter to all of these colleges. And again, high level, basically that letter said, look, we're going to be paying attention to how your graduates do in repaying these student loans. we're going to be tracking this data because, and again, this has been teased from the beginning, but we're getting some more and more, I think, kind of specific ideas of what this actually means. And it's holding the colleges accountable. And this is something that we love. I mean, we love this. This is a big part of our position paper. And we actually called it our hope when we look at, well, how do we improve higher education here? We're calling it the era of accountability here. So that's kind of the word. And again, all of us have to be accountable. We have to be accountable as students, as parents sending our kids to college. The federal government, they have to have more accountability. We want to see Wall Street and the lenders have more accountability, but the colleges have to have more accountability, right? They're not off the hook here. And some of the more specific kind of, again, statistics that were shared within this article or within this Dear Colleague letter here was that if 30% of your federal student loan borrowers are defaulting 3 years in a row, you're going to lose federal financial aid. Okay. If 40% of your federal student loans go into default in just 1 year, you're going to lose federal student aid. So these are some tangible things that are, again, at least being proposed. They have to be approved. That is really going to force colleges to say, we have to make sure that these students are in a position to be able to pay back what they borrow. So again, I know we love it, but what are some of your thoughts around this?
Yeah, I love this too. I love this too. We've talked about the federal loan, the Parent Plus loan, and how I'm just a 90% disliker slash hater of it because people get into out of control debt and the government's advocating for that. So I think that'll probably go bye-bye, which I think is huge. But I love that the colleges need to be accountable. I think the colleges need to be accountable. And then to your point, as consumers, we need to be accountable and make good decisions. But right now, the colleges, they can just do whatever they want. They've got vehicles that they can use, the federal government, and then there's the private market that does their own thing. But they need to be, and they should. I really, really hope this gets through to the Senate. It gets into the House and then through to the Senate. I don't see why there'll be a problem here. I think this is hugely beneficial. The colleges and universities have huge lobbying efforts that I'm sure will go against this because they're probably going to argue this isn't our mission. We're not financial planners. What do we know about this? Da 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 da. That's what I think is going to happen here. But with these kind of price tags and the trillion plus that we have, I mean, this is a major crisis. And so all the players they got to have their role in here, and they can spend the money on marketing. They can spend the money on how they're going to figure this out. And really, it's going to be family by family. Look at this. And like, we can't do more than this for anybody or for certain families. It's going to be hard because when I start to think, how are they actually going to do this? Because every person that they're given, every kid they're given a package to is different, obviously. And how do we even get our head around how are we doing the right thing for this family and this student when we give them this package? It's going to be something to figure out, but it's figure outable. It is. And it's game time. Like, we're in a major crisis here, and they just can't.
Well,
They can't walk away and just laugh all the way to the bank, like I like to say, which a lot of these colleges are doing. And I tell parents all the time, like, they don't care if and when you retire. They really don't. They're not financial planners. You're making really bad decisions that are going to hurt you for the rest of your life and your child. But yeah, I love, I mean, this administration, from everything that's happened in the last 100+ days, like, I love this piece, and I hope it moves. I really do.
Well, look, even having them talking about it and proposing some tangible things here, we got some real inertia, right? Like, even
Yeah.
that is like a minor victory, right? And again, looking at them as real stakeholders in this investment that is higher education in our country here. But I have some thoughts around that, because I'm totally with you that I think all these colleges are going to say, we have no way of knowing what every family's budget is and if our offer is kind of within their affordability range. I'm calling bullshit there. Before they even apply there, what they're willing to pay. You're so sophisticated, and the level of data that you've gathered, again, before they're even at your school, heck, before they've applied to your school, you know a lot about these families, okay? And you can probably even back into a budget. But guess what? Once they do apply, and specifically when they apply for financial aid, which means they're raising their hand saying, we do have some concerns about cost, we do need some discounts or would like some discounts to make that happen. Well, now we know, again, we've seen their taxes. We know what they have in, non-retirement savings, investments, et cetera. For schools that require the CSS profile, we know what they have in retirement. We basically have their entire, financial profile here. So I think that pretty quickly there could be some reasonable, insight into what the outcome is likely going to be, for that student at their school. I think they essentially know for most students, is this a good investment for this student based on them and their majors and our school and how we do within those majors, and does this whole thing work? And obviously to kind of this is self-serving, Peggy, but it's also the best solution that I have at the moment. Our software does this, right? This is when we have our affordability tab that says, here's our budget, here's what it's going to cost over 4 years. What does the delta in terms of what we have to borrow look like? And does the math make sense, right? So, and that's instant, that's scalable. You could have both sides sign off on that. And then maybe there's something like, colleges can only have a certain percentage of families that are kind of outside of what looks on the surface like a reasonable budget, or maybe like our paper says, they can have some skin in the game, right? They can, have co-sign on a loan or offer their own loans. And again, we're getting a little bit more complex here, but guess what? We're going to have some more complex solutions. And these are just a few of the ways that, again, I think seem fairly reasonable here.
Yeah, they're gonna have to look, to your point, if it is a CSS profile school, they have a lot of information. In my mind, they're plugging that into, yet again, another program that spits out and basically makes a bunch of assumptions and says maybe this is what this family can afford. I will say, because of my decades of experience in financial planning, every family is different. I could tell you stories all day. You'd be shocked at people, what they have and then what they don't have at the end of the month. So there's a lot going on here. And then it's not they do have everything. I hear you. They have all that information, but just because of my background, I'm thinking, so every family isn't the same that has that. And there could be stuff going on behind the scenes. There's just a lot there. And the colleges, they'll be thinking about the legality of all this. If they don't give a package of this one versus this one because they have some way of figuring out, oh, but you're a sociology major versus you want to go into comp sci. So there's a lot of moving pieces here, but as we talk about it, to me, it's kind of exciting to go this way, not for the colleges probably, but to make them even not even say to them, be accountable, because that's more like threatening, but it's just be a part of this, your mission is supposed to be to educate these people and blah blah blah, not to bankrupt them, which is what it's turned out to be. So we're gonna have to do a paradigm shift here, and you be a part of it. And the colleges that get really good at what we're talking about, that's going to actually be a positive for them, and it's going to bring in more net revenue ultimately down the road, which is what they all want. But it'll take some time and it'll take some investment, and it's change. It's just going to need to be changed.
And again, I think our it's the closest thing I can think of. Again, our software is a plug and play solution where both parties can look at that, have a reasonable expectation of what the outcome is going to be. Now, we have to trust that the family is being honest with their budget and their resources, et cetera, and things like this. But guess what? If they're not, there's going to be some accountability there. And we have to, again, trust the data that the colleges are providing to say that, yes, on average, students with this degree go on to earn X amount, right? But I kind of like your terminology there, the word of everybody's participating in it. Right. And just saying hey, the college is saying, based on the information we have, this seems to be we can deliver, within a reasonable expectation, a return on the investment that they're making in our institution. Right. Knowing that it's imperfect and individuals are individuals and majors change and all the things, right? Life happens. But basically, we can avoid just in huge numbers, these outcomes that a lot of people would have looked at and said, yeah, no shit, that didn't end well. Right?
Yeah.
It never had a chance in some ways, or if it were to happen or that kid defied odds and made it happen. But again, was
you
the
and I
exception.
have off the top of our head many stories where it's this isn't going to end well for this family. We've talked to them about it, and they're still they're hook, line, and sinker. They're doing it. And it's like, all right, you're doing it with your eyes wide open. But I still lay in bed thinking about some of these people. Like, I really wish they weren't making this
100%.
decision. The colleges at this point are not laying up at night thinking about it. It's like that's some revenue flowing in. And that's a whole nother podcast about why people make the
Yeah.
decisions they make for
Many
college.
podcasts, right? Well, and again, that's another stakeholder. It needs accountability, and that's student and parent, right? But again, we got to help them have more guardrails, and this is one way that we're doing that.
Yep, exactly.
Okay, so again, that's to your point. We can spend that's many podcasts within that conversation, and we are continuing to try to play an active role in saying how can we help again get in that conversation or make that conversation easier for these institutions and for students and parents, right? Because again, I feel like we're on kind of third base there with what we've got already here. So last thing I just want to touch on here, Peggy, and this, not all of this is brand new. We've already kind of heard some of this, and I'll read off of this quickly here just to rip through it. But the president's 26 budget proposal calls for the elimination. Now, again, this is not a scaling back. This is not that's the word, eliminating the following programs that have to do with what we're talking about in higher ed here. The name of this bill is called TRIO, but I just want to quickly rip down what they're proposing to eliminate completely. Upward Bound, Talent Search, Student Support Services, Educational Opportunity Centers, Upward Bound Math Science, Ronald McNair Post Baccalaureate Achievement, and Veterans Upward Bound. And then it is also, and again, this is kind of a throwing here, but eliminating Gear Up, and then a major cut to federal work study. So I guess not eliminating work study, but a major cut to federal work study. Any just kind of, again, knee jerks or thoughts about what we're talking about here, knowing that this is just a proposal that has to go through and actually get approved and all that, but just some more details in terms of what they're trying to cut here in our space.
Yeah, if you're familiar with any of the programs that Matt just rattled off, I mean, they were all created to help disadvantaged, lower income kids, just give them a leg up, help them get into education post high school. The veteran one obviously has a very specific niche. I mean, it's just they have their place. Is there waste in the government? I've said it before. Absolutely. I don't think anybody's going to argue against that, but these are major, major significant cuts, and they're hitting a certain subset, whereas most people, a lot of people are just, so I've never heard of them. It doesn't affect my family at all. It's going to affect world changing kids, right? Kids that would really impact the world in a major, major way if this goes through. Now, that's a big if because this is the wish list of the Trump administration. So it's got to go through the legislative branch, and then it'll look like a different puppy by the time it goes through. But yeah, this is pretty major. Not surprising, maybe the amount of the cuts, like they're not even leaving any money behind. Like in work study, there's 250 million left behind of 1.23 billion. So massive, massive cut. But like you said, a lot of them, it's like we were spending almost 1.6 billion on Trio and Gear Up, and it's just nope. We're not supporting that. And what the administration is saying is they're arguing that colleges, states, and local communities should take on that responsibility. Well, that's just a bullshit passing the buck. I mean, I live in Washington. We're in the red. A lot of states are having issues, right? They can't just go, oh, okay, sure, yeah, I can just pick that up. And I mean, it's passing the buck. This administration has done that in completely other areas that don't involve education as well. There's no funding to do that. So basically, you're just killing it. It's dead in the water. It's not going to get a local community is going to pick that up. Not in any way that's going to anywhere match the magnitude of what the federal government's doing. Again, it's creating these haves and have-nots even more, which doesn't bode well for our country in general. So I hope some of these, they get softened. They'll get softened for sure.
Yeah, I hope you're right. I mean, in short, it's like I looked at this and I go, yeah, again, it's just kind of some of the ones where you just go, like, what are we doing here, guys? Like, what are we doing? Like, do you understand who is benefiting from these? And again, to your point, right? It's the folks, it's the students, it's the families that need the most help. And are they perfect? Are there ways that they could be more efficient? I have no doubt about it. And I'm sure there's some advantages to getting some fresh eyes and saying, again, where can we trim some fat here?
Absolutely. Yeah.
Know the impact. that some of these programs have had on individuals. And they've made the difference from, borderline being a, caste system to helping these kids get from this community and this neighborhood to, the middle class and beyond, right? And without it, odds would have been stacked against them even more than they were already, right? But these are, and again, the individuals within these programs are basically out there doing God's works, trying to make a difference for these kids. So again, it's like, could they be more efficient? I have no doubt about it. I have no problem with like looking at them, but to just get rid of them, and again, specifically who's going to be hurt by these the most, that's not what we're about,
I mean, that's
so
not what this country is about.
that's what I'm saying. That's
Go
not what
ahead and
this.
forensically look at each one of those organizations and see
Yeah.
where is their waste? Are there too many employees? Yada, yada.
Mhm.
That's all good. More of like with the scalpel, like we say, instead of the
Yeah.
chainsaw kind of thing. And the other thing to think about is, okay, so we're making all these cuts. Where's all this money going? And that's,
Right.
that's another conversation, but lot of money has supposedly been saved, and like, why are we doing all this, so
Yeah. So again, tough pill to swallow, because again, we've been pretty close to some individuals that we know that have just changed their lives being a part of this program here. So what can you do about it? If you're not psyched to hear about this, if you're not in support of it, right? Call your House rep, right? Call your senators. I mean, that's the action item that you can do right now. If you've benefited from it, if you know some folks that would or can benefit from it, that's kind of the action.
yeah, if they have town halls, go to them. Like,
Right.
we're a democracy. It's power of the people, it's voice of the people. If we're all just sitting there not speaking, then everybody inside the beltway turns into a little aristocracy, which we kind of a little bit have sometimes here. So we've got to be proactive, and like Matt said, it's not just if it affects you. You really got to think about if this affects others, and philosophically I don't agree with this, let them know. Right?
Yeah.
Because, just pay it forward for others. There could be something down the road that affects you, and you'd love it if other people were saying, hey, this doesn't affect me, but this isn't right, what you're doing and what you're advocating for, and I don't agree with it.
That's right. Right. And again, what's actionable here? Control the controllables. We can pick up the phone, right, and say that we're not on board with this. So that's kind of the takeaway here. But yeah, another action-packed week. I'm sure we'll have more to talk about next week here, Peggy. But I don't know that any I don't know, sign-off thoughts for yourself.
I think it's just what we usually say. Like, if you're a parent and you've got high school kids, this is a hugely exciting time. Just keep listening and understanding. And my big advice is just build that college list and don't get too emotionally tied to a specific school. There's so many great schools out there, and just keep your kids level headed, and you stay level headed, and it's going to all work out. It's going to all work out. It can work out for every kid. And there's just so much opportunity in this country. And I know we're going through a lot right now in our country, but we've gone through a lot of different times when none of us were alive. And maybe some of us were, but we'll get through all of this. And I just have to feel like live in a world will be better for it, right?
Hey, resilience is one of our kind of whatever mottos here in our country, right? So
Yeah.
yeah, we'll embody that and take action, right? Take action against something that doesn't sit well with you. We're not helpless victims.
Yeah, and
Here.
not everybody around the world can take action that we take for granted. So we should definitely not ignore that we have that right, and sometimes responsibility to do that.
And to give a shout out, because like I said, the individual that I stole this quote from, Action Absorbs Anxiety. Dan Harris is his name. He's got a good book, cool podcast called 10% Happier. So look that up if that resonates with you at all. And that's it for me.
All right, everybody. See you next time.
Bye. Okay, thanks as always for tuning in. If you liked what you heard today, if you think others could benefit, please share, please follow. It means a whole lot to us. Today's episode was produced by Eileen Campbell. It was co-hosted by the fairy godmother of financial aid herself, the budget queen, Peggy Keogh. Thanks for tuning in to college.